in during their time of need. Sydney, like most young adults with their entire lives ahead of them, is slowly figuring out her purpose. While she finds solace in something more, she wants a companion, someone to share experiences with.
She uses dating apps to meet other local singles.
Dating apps are essentially programs that people have that allow them to select people they're interested in. And if two people ultimately select each other, they would be connected through the app, at which point they'd be allowed to start messaging each other.
After several months on the app and a few unsuccessful dates, Sydney and another user match, and it isn't long until they have their first date on the night of November 14th, 2017.
Dating applications is a relatively new phenomenon, and people need to understand that there are inherent risks in using these methods.
The first date goes so well that the plan
be careful of what they need. To be smart with your friends, going out with somebody, and they're going to all to put herself in this.
with their dating app match. Sydney grabs her purse and gives herself a nervous final glance. This is what she's been looking forward to. Excited, she heads outside. Little does Sydney know, the unthinkable is about to happen. No one can predict the unspeakable horrors that are about to befall this innocent young woman. She's supposed to come home later that evening, cuddle with her cat in bed, then wake up the next morning and do it all over again. Instead, her life and the lives of others who love her are forever changed when Sydney Loof disappears. Something that's extremely out of character. She never missed a day without calling it.
This is the kind of thing on the news and think this kind of thing doesn't happen here. It shouldn't happen here.
Friends and family begin contacting one another, all with worry in their hearts, but trying to tell themselves that Sydney may have misplaced her phone or slept in. But with no one able to reach Sydney, her parents make the drive from Neely to Lincoln 2 days after last contact. They rush to her apartment fearing for the worst, but hoping for the best. Inside,
they opened up the door to get in her apartment, noticed her vehicle was still there, and noticed that the cat didn't have any food or water.
Now, Sydney loves this cat, and so they immediately know that something's wrong because she would never leave it alone without any sustenance.
She talked to her parents pretty often. They were pretty close. They hadn't heard from her. They called police almost immediately after that.
The immediate time after somebody is reported missing, it's very important. The police need to act quickly. Those first few hours are precious in terms of the investigation.
speaking with employees and customers in various events. CCTV footage.
It's important in helping to establish a timeline and even demonstrate a trail where the missing person may have gone. It can certainly assist in identifying whether or not any suspicious behavior or activities took place in and around where the missing person was. It could even help identify a suspect.
This footage, taken outside Sydney's place of work, is the last known video of her.
Hey, I just got a text from my sister. You remember Rick, her neighbor?
Sure. He's the 76-year-old guy who still runs marathons, right?
Sadly, not anymore.
What? You mean...
Mm-hmm. Just like that.
Wow. So sudden. We're not about to have the we need life insurance conversation again, are we?
No, we're having the we're getting coverage so we don't have to worry about it conversation.
So you're calling about the $9.95 a month plan from Colonial Penn?
I am. We put it off long enough. We are getting that $9.95 plan today.
Is it time for you to call about the $9.95 plan? I'm Jonathan from Colonial Penn Life Insurance Company. Sometimes we just need a reminder not to take today for granted. It could be the death of someone you know or a health scare. That's why today could be a great day to call for free information about Colonial Penn's $9.95 plan. If you're age 50 to 85, you can get guaranteed acceptance whole life insurance starting at just $9.95 a month. There are no health questions, so you can't be turned down for any health reason. This is permanent coverage. Just pay your premiums for lifelong security. The $9.95 plan is Colonial Penn's #1 most popular whole life plan. Options start at just $9.95 a month. That's less than 35 cents a day. Your rate can never go up. It's locked in for life. Don't put it off. Take the first easy step. Call today for free information. And you'll also get this free beneficiary planner. So call now.
Call 1-800-243-5651 for your free information and free gift. That's 1-800-243-5651. There's no risk or obligation. That number again is 1-800-243-5651. 1-800-243-5651. Call now.
Hello, Colonial Penn?
Honey, you were so right. I listed this in less than a minute.
I told you listing on Poshmark was quick and easy.
Oh, I sold my black tote and my slip dress. Let's go get mani-pedis.
Ooh, thanks, Mom.
Thanks, Poshmark.
Every new listing by November 3rd is a weekly chance to win luxury goods. Terms apply. Before switching to Caden Lane PJs, my baby struggled to sleep through the night. Their snuggly soft bamboo kept her cool and comfortable so she can fall asleep and stay asleep. Caden Lane prioritizes quality over anything else, making sure their sleepwear is long-lasting and so incredibly soft. If you want only the best for your baby, try Caden Lane. You won't regret it.
I cannot believe everything at Fabletics is 80% off right now. With Fabletics, you know you're getting all the latest styles and colors. So fill your closet today with 80% off your entire first order at Fabletics.com as a new VIP member.
Look at this one under eye bag. It's gone.
They are some of the hottest videos on social media. Those videos claiming to instantly get rid of bags under your eyes. It's called Plexiderm, and lifestyle expert Annette Figueroa is here to tell us why she says this one is for real.
This one is for real, and I'm so excited. And not only does it work on the bags, it works on the appearance of crow's feet, fine lines, and wrinkles.
At our $14.95 price, your solution is at plexidermtrial.com.
Sydney Loof grew up in small-town Nebraska and eventually moved to the state capital, Lincoln. November 15th, 2017 is supposed to have been a day like any other. She works a shift at the hardware store, then heads home to get ready for a date with someone she's met online. When she doesn't show up for her shift the next day and can't be reached by friends or family, her parents rush to her apartment. Sydney's nowhere to be found. Investigators begin at Sydney's place of work in Lincoln. They hone in on one very important piece of evidence: CCTV footage. This footage is the last known video of her. Sydney's friends are already on the case. They have several saved photos from Sydney's social media, including one from the night of her disappearance, and another from November 14th, which shows Sydney with her date, a 23-year-old woman named Audrey. The same woman she went out with again on November 15th, the night Sydney posted a photo of herself ready for the date. Her friends create a fake profile on the dating app and get matched with Audrey, quickly gain her trust, and obtain her phone number. Sydney's friends contact police on November 17th, 2 days after her second date with Audrey. For them, all signs seem to point to one outcome: a date gone wrong.
Online dating apps are really just a roll of the dice in terms of you don't know who that person is on the other side. They may be able to keep up a pretense for some time before their true identity is revealed, and that's the inherent danger.
After several attempts, police finally get a hold of Audrey. She confirms that she and Sydney went on 2 dates, the first on November 14th and the second on November 15th, but that she hasn't heard from Sydney since. During a second phone call with police the next day, on November 18th, Audrey claims that on the night of the 15th, she picked Sydney up from her apartment and that they drove around Lincoln and smoked marijuana. Then she dropped Sydney off at a friend's house. She claims they made plans to see each other again the following day, but hasn't heard from her since. Investigators look into Audrey's version of events, and while they don't remove her entirely as a suspect, they do begin to look into other scenarios of what could have happened to Sydney. Is it possible that Audrey is telling the truth? If so, what transpires after Sydney is dropped off at her friend's house? Could it be that the investigators have been looking in the wrong direction? As the clock ticks down, the days pass by without any news on Sydney. The closest to her begin to fear the worst.
The first 48 hours are often referred to as the most critical time in a missing persons case. Evidence only lasts so long in many instances, and often it can be degraded the longer it sits and nobody detects it. Video footage can be overwritten, whether accidentally or just over the passage of time, and people forget things. The longer they go without having to think about something, the less likely they are to remember those small details.
Police continue their investigation, exhausting every possible lead. With that persistence and the use of technology, they uncover a key piece of evidence: the last ping from Sydney's cell phone.
Ping is a piece of data, essentially, that is transmitted from a cell phone to the nearest cell phone tower where it is stored. Police have been using this information for quite some time in order to help narrow down a geographical area where that ping may have originated from.
This particular ping shows Sydney in Wilbur, Nebraska, the night of her disappearance, a small town with a population of 1850. It's the kind of place where everyone is on a first-name basis, a place where secrets are hard to keep. Back in Lincoln, police try to locate another ping, but with no luck. They come to the conclusion that her cell phone's either been turned off or destroyed. With a possible location uncovered, investigators are still at a loss. The days have turned into weeks, and Sydney is still missing. With only one person of interest who maintains their story and no other evidence, the outcome into finding Sydney is beginning to look grim.
There's nothing worse than not being able to find the answers for the family of a missing person. No investigator wants to allow their case to grow cold.
While Sydney's family struggles to come to terms with her horrendous reality, the whole state of Nebraska is on high alert for either Sydney herself or anyone who may have more information into her whereabouts. Friends create the Finding Sydney Lou social media page as a way to help the investigation and to receive tips, while also spreading the word about Sydney. And as the investigation continues, Sydney's hometown of Neely bands together. At Sydney's former high school, about 250 people gather for a candlelight vigil with hope of Sydney's safe return. Sydney's family does not attend. They find it too difficult. Posters are spread all throughout the state. Billboards are erected. Sydney's family released photos of her tattoos, the most prominent being lyrics on her inner right arm, all with hope that this information may help to locate her.
Investigators essentially pull out all the stops. They put up pictures of Sydney everywhere. Nobody in Nebraska could turn their head without seeing a picture of Sydney. This keeps her top of mind, and they also are aware that they need to keep looking for her.
As other families enjoy each other's company during the holiday season, Sydney's family and friends can only wonder where she could be. Police are tight-lipped with any new leads or evidence that may have been uncovered, which leads the Loof family to draw their own conclusions. The Loof family believes Sydney has been abducted. If this theory proves to be true, who could have taken Sydney, and what could their intentions be?
At Humana, we believe your health care should evolve with you, and part of that evolution means choosing the right Medicare plan for you. Humana can help. Hi, my name is Sam Davis, and I'm going to tell you about Medicare Advantage prescription drug plans that can provide more coverage than original Medicare, including prescription drug coverage, all wrapped up into one convenient plan. With original Medicare, you're covered for hospital stays and doctor office visits, but you have to meet a deductible for each, and then you're still responsible for 20% of the cost. Next, let's look at Medicare supplement plans. If a service is covered under original Medicare, then a Medicare supplement plan pays for some or all of your Medicare deductibles and the 20% co-insurance, but they may have higher monthly premiums and no prescription drug coverage. Humana Medicare Advantage prescription drug plans include medical coverage, plus prescription drug coverage, with $0 copays on hundreds of prescriptions. Most plans include $0 copays for covered preventive dental services, vision coverage that includes vision exams and a yearly allowance toward eyewear, even hearing benefits that include routine hearing exams and coverage toward hearing aids. You can get $0 copays for in-network preventive services and $0 copays for routine vaccines. And there's worldwide coverage for emergency and urgent care when you travel. Plus, Humana also offers Medicare Advantage plans. Plans have $0 or low monthly plan premiums, and there's a cap on your out-of-pocket costs. So call or go online today to see if there's a Humana plan in your area and to get our free decision guide. The Medicare annual enrollment period ends on December 7th, so call now. Humana, a more human way to healthcare.
This is an important message for women who receive birth control injections or injections to alleviate pain from endometriosis. If you or a loved one received injections of the birth control Depo-Provera or Depo-Sub-Q Provera 104 and later suffered a brain tumor or died due to complications of a brain tumor, call the Victims Justice Group now. You may be entitled to significant money damages. A recent study revealed a significant risk, more than 5 times the increased risk of intracranial meningioma, which is a tumor that grows in the membranes that surround the brain. If you or a loved one received birth control injections of Depo-Provera or Depo-Sub-Q Provera 104, or received injections of Depo-Sub-Q Provera 104 to help alleviate pain from endometriosis, and were later diagnosed with a brain tumor or died due to complications of a brain tumor, call our helpline now. There are strict deadlines to file a claim. Don't delay. The Victims Justice Group is here to help you get the justice you deserve for your pain and suffering.
Call 1-800-893-6985. That's 1-800-893-6985.
Coming up next on True Crime Network.
It's been weeks since anyone has heard from 24-year-old Sydney Loof. The last thing anyone hears from her is that she's about to get picked up from her apartment in Lincoln, Nebraska for a second date with Audrey, someone she met on a popular dating app. Audrey claims that after their date on November 15th, she drops Sydney off at a friend's house. Her parents go to her apartment. There, they find a cat without food and water, and that's when they know something horrible has happened. After discovering Sydney's latest cell phone ping in the small town of Wilbur, police have a theory regarding her whereabouts, but are keeping it to themselves. leaving Sydney's family to draw their own conclusions. They believe Sydney may have been abducted.
Kidnapping in the United States is pretty rare, but it does happen. Human trafficking these days is generally the reason kidnappings occur, whether it's to lock somebody into the sex trade, for example, or forced labor market.
With no concrete evidence and no sightings, the family can only hope that Sydney is okay. But police have a suspect, one who's been in front of everyone's noses all along. In the days following her disappearance, Sydney's friends create a fake profile on the dating app and find Audrey, Sydney's date. They quickly befriend her, convincing her to give them her phone number. She does, and Sydney's friends give that number to the police. Investigators are able to reach Audrey and speak to her. Audrey tells her side of the story. She and Sydney went on a date. Then she dropped her off at a friend's house and hasn't heard from her since. But investigators aren't 100% sold on Audrey's innocence. They keep the young woman as a person of interest. And it isn't long before their patience pays off. Authorities discover that Audrey isn't an Audrey at all. Her real name is Bailey Boswell, and she has more than a dozen federal fraud charges on her rap sheet, including an accusation that she defrauded 2 people out of more than $400,000. In total, she has more than 14 counts against her, and each of those comes with the possibility of up to 10 years in prison. Those charges, and the fact that she's the last person to see Sydney Loof, are enough to bring her in for questioning. But the most damning bit of information authorities uncover is where Bailey lives, in a basement apartment 45 minutes south of Lincoln, in the small town of Wilbur, Nebraska. The same small town where Sydney's cell phone last pinged.
For the first night, they went out and smoked some weed, kind of got to know each other, and I believe that was that. The second night is when they ended up actually going back to the apartment in Wilbur, which is where everything happened after that.
Police execute a search warrant for Bailey's basement apartment in Wilbur, located only a block away from the community's public schools. Sydney's family and friends wait in pure terror and anticipation for news about the home in Wilbur. But they're heartbroken to hear that Sydney isn't there, and neither is Bailey. Police also take notice that the apartment has been thoroughly cleaned. The smell of bleach overpowers the small space. They log several items of interest as well, including Viagra and 17 sex toys. With Bailey Boswell nowhere to be found and an apartment that's been cleaned down to the bones, investigators now believe the worst has materialized. They believe Sydney Loof has been murdered. Their only hope in finding the answers now rests with locating Bailey Boswell. But Nebraska is the 16th largest state in the country, with a combined population of nearly 2 million people. Bailey Boswell could be anywhere. She could have even left the state.
Surveillance video footage can be like following a trail. One piece of footage leads to another. In the case of Bailey Boswell, when police start following her trail, they realize she hasn't covered her tracks well enough.
When the media get wind of Bailey's possible involvement, she releases a video on social media proclaiming her innocence.
I met her on a Tuesday. We drove around Lincoln, smoked weed, had a great time. We hit it off. I dropped her off at home, picked her up the next night at her house. We made our way to my house where we smoked. I went to take her home, and she asked me to drop her off at a friend's house, so I did so. I haven't heard from her since. I didn't have anything to do with this, and I hope that Sydney is found very soon. She is a sweet, amazing girl.
Little does Bailey know, she's left a trail. The police use the closed-circuit TV footage from various shops and stores to follow her as she tries to evade authorities. On November 30th, 2017, 15 days after Sydney's disappearance, Bailey is apprehended in Branson, Missouri, nearly 6 hours south of Wilbur. Yet as police take her into custody, and as they further review the surveillance footage of the many hotels and stores where Bailey has been caught on camera, they make a shocking discovery. In all of the footage, Bailey isn't alone. But it isn't Sydney by her side. It's an older man, 51-year-old Aubrey Trail.
Bailey had come from kind of a broken home and was looking for somebody to kind of take her under their wing, and her and Aubrey started dating. They started doing drugs together. They also started, stealing these antiques and kind of getting a good thing going for them. Aubrey always said he had money, and Bailey was right there with them.
But Aubrey is painting a completely different picture than the ones authorities are.
We've spent the last few days watching ourselves being slammed and crucified in the newspapers, and we thought it was time we had our say. The police department apparently wants everyone to believe that we're hiding, that we haven't talked to them, that we're avoiding them. We both wrote long statements telling them everything we know. We repeatedly called the Lincoln Police Department. We were told to quit blowing up their phone, even though we told them, hey, do you understand that we're the people you're looking for? They're telling you that they have all these leads, that Sydney was last seen in Wilbur. What they're not telling you is that we are the two people who gave them all these leads.
Police find and arrest Aubrey Trail. Yet even with the two main suspects in custody, the question on everyone's mind remains. Where is Sydney Loof? And how is Aubrey Trail involved in all of this?
Aubrey Trail and Bailey Boswell, you're in more or less what even Aubrey Trail would call a criminal racket. They kind of just moved around the Midwest area, buying and selling antiques. Most of them were stolen. Aubrey Trail admits that. And then they would sell them, and that's how they got money. Aubrey Trail and Bailey Boswell also invited young girls who may not have had a direction in life or maybe looking for a family or had a broken family of their own, invited them into their family. He would give them money and more or less they would become a family, or then they would engage in sexual encounters with each other, and he would pay them and tell them that they were one of his girls. And they bounced around the Midwest a lot, mostly keeping their home base for the time period in Wilbur, but they had lived around in other places throughout the Midwest.
Authorities may have suspects, but they still don't know what happened to Sydney or where she is. But that all changes on December 4th, 2017, when Sydney Loof's remains are found scattered about an hour west of Wilbur, near the rural town of Edgar, Nebraska. Along the empty country roads, investigators discover her dismembered body. Her assailants cut her body into 14 pieces and placed them into garbage bags.
They found multiple trash bags with body parts in all kinds of different areas, just cut up in various ways throughout all these trash bags.
Of the 14 bags, only 13 are recovered.
The forensic pathologist examines the female remains and is able to identify them as Sydney. Identification is based on the lyrical tattoo that was located on her right arm. They also determined that Sydney's cause of death was from asphyxiation, as there were signs of petechial hemorrhaging. From this, it is concluded that somebody strangled Sydney to death before dismembering her body.
But you would think by dismembering an entire person's body inside of a small apartment, there would be some sort of evidence, whether it be blood spatter, hair, any sort of DNA that was left there. But there was nothing that investigators found.
Only a true psychopath has the ability to do what was done to Sydney. A psychopath is typically somebody who's incapable of showing remorse for their actions. They may or may not have had interactions with the police in the past, and they're masters of manipulation.
Though the outcome is not what everyone's hoping for, with 2 suspects in custody and enough evidence to convict them, a light shines through the darkness, and the trials can begin.
At drivetime.com, we've been hard at work. And we finally did it.
Did you make it so I can finally shop at thousands of cars with no hit to my credit?
Wait, yes! Go to drivetime.com, get approved with no credit hit.
Go to drivetime.com, get approved, and shop your real terms with no credit hit.
At Consumer Cellular, we pride ourselves on getting you the exact same nationwide coverage as the leading carriers for up to half the cost. But don't worry, we've got a lot more than that going for us. Woo.
Like this beautiful store in Arizona, for example. It's the perfect place for me to tell you a little bit more about our phones and how they can become your phones. You name it, we probably got it. We have the top smartphones from all the major companies. If it's state-of-the-art cameras you want with space-age metal housing, we got them. If you want a smartphone with lots of bells and whistles but won't break the bank, we've got that too. We even have flip phones like the Iris Flip. If you're someone that doesn't need all that mumbo-jumbo and just wants something simple. And now, we even have watches.
We do.
No matter what device you choose, you'll be happy to know that if your data needs change,
No problem.
with our Smart Flex feature, you don't have to sweat it. Like say you're on a road trip out west and end up using a bunch of data. We can simply flex you up to the next data tier for as little as $5. Then, when you get home, you can flex right back down with no penalty, so you only pay for what you actually need.
With Consumer Cellular, you get the exact same nationwide coverage as the leading carriers for up to half the cost.
I know what you're thinking. What if I don't have one of these amazing stores in my town yet? Can I get these phones sent to me?
Yes, you can.
Will our award-winning customer service help me switch over or add a line for $15 to make my own family plan?
Of course they will.
Is it easy?
Easy as pie.
You see that tower out there? It's a beauty. And there are thousands more like it, working hard for me and you, supplying 5G coverage to this beautiful nation of ours. We know how important coverage is. That's why we offer a risk-free guarantee. If you're not satisfied within 30 days of activation, you can pay nothing. Oh, look.
New customers save $50 when you sign up today. Call 800-311-5340. Find us in Target or visit consumercellular.com to switch today.
She knows what she's talking about. Pick up the phone.
Look at this one under eye bag. It's gone.
There's this side and this side.
Just look at these results. 50 and haven't slept in weeks. 35 and fresh from a vacation.
They are some of the hottest videos on social media. Those videos claiming to instantly get rid of bags under your eyes. It's called Plexiderm, and lifestyle expert Annette Figueroa is here to tell us why she says this one is for real.
This one is for real, and I'm so excited. And I did this to my father. We were at home. I had the timer on, and we were screaming. 4 minutes, 34 seconds, completely gone. And not only does it work on the bags, it works on the appearance of crow's feet, fine lines, and wrinkles.
At our $14.95 price, it's the best way to try Plexiderm and see it work after your first application. Your solution is at plexidermtrial.com or call the number on your screen.
Missing Sydney Loof is discovered to have met a horrific end. Police have her last known contacts, Bailey Boswell and Aubrey Trail in custody and have brought them to trial.
I didn't have anything to do with this, and I hope that Sydney is found very soon. She is a sweet, amazing girl.
Family and friends wait with bated breath to find out what really happened to Sydney. Court gets underway for Aubrey Trail in 2018, who briefly maintains his innocence before making the first of many startling confessions. In February of that year, he admits to causing Sydney's death, but claims it's an accident.
The court has to consider all the evidence that's presented to the court. So if Aubrey says that it's an accident, that's definitely something that the court has to weigh whether or not they think that that's what likely occurred. If it is determined by the court that it was an accident, it could certainly lead to a lesser charge, manslaughter, criminal negligence, or something that has to do with tampering with a body after death.
But what about Aubrey's declaration of innocence? The court has to take that into consideration as well.
As far as I know, I'm not wanted for anything. I'm a person of interest, and I'm not really running from anything.
As the witnesses are called to the stand, the curtain hanging over that night is slowly pulled back, and the truth of it is more horrifying than anyone can imagine. Sydney has been in contact with Bailey using the alias of Audrey.
Bailey and Sydney met on social media in November of 2017, more or less just looking to go out on a date.
On November 14th, the two women have their first date.
They were going to maybe go out and smoke some weed, kind of get to know each other.
Things go well enough for them to agree to a second date the following night.
Bailey had brought Sydney back to the apartment.
What Sydney couldn't know is that Bailey Boswell has been luring women back to the apartment in Wilbur that she shares with Aubrey Trail. Aubrey claims to have paid Sydney $5,000 to fulfill a sexual fantasy of his that involves strangulation. He says she's a willing participant and that she's even excited to partake, but that the evening goes too far, and he ends up accidentally strangling her. In a state of panic, Aubrey makes the choice to dismember Sydney.
Somehow he dismembers the body, drains all the blood, and it's all cleaned up, so there's no evidence of her blood even being in the apartment.
Aubrey divides her remains into 14 garbage bags, then drives around the Nebraskan countryside.
They start driving west of Wilbur, and first off, they're throwing out some of her belongings out the window, her cell phone, which is later recovered along a highway west of Wilbur. Then they go even farther west of Wilbur and dispose of her body just in some brush off the side of the highways. For the longest time, Aubrey, one of his many stories, said that he never planned to kill Sydney, that she had a medical seizure while they were engaging in sexual acts. He just happened to feel like the best way to get her out of the apartment after she died was to cut her up because he couldn't carry her over his shoulder out the apartment and somebody would see her. So he said that this was a spur-of-the-moment thing.
However, it becomes clear rather quickly that Sydney's murder is not a spur-of-the-moment thing. It's premeditated, and prosecutors have the evidence to back up their claims.
Nebraska first-degree murder can either be designated as a Class 1 or a Class 1A felony, and that depends on the aggravating or mitigating circumstances of the offense.
Closed-circuit TV footage shows Bailey Boswell and Aubrey Trail out and about the morning of November 15th.
They showed him going to buy drop cloths, going to buy hacksaws, going to buy tin snips, and even meat grinders at places hours or days before Sydney was murdered. They also had video of Bailey buying more drop cloths and things that were actually being used to kill or to cover up the murder. That really showed that this was premeditated.